But there's something about, for someone like Luther, the idea that if you can be freed from guilt and condemnation, you will become a healthier, happier, more productive person, a person who is more engaged in life, and kind of a healthier individual or a healthier community is one that is freed from this sense of condemnation. So Hessert says, yeah, okay, we can understand this not in any supernatural way, just in a very simple way, that guilt and condemnation results from the very natural way that a self exists between what is and what ought to be. And that every time we live, even if you're reading self-help books are always saying, how to become a better person. And they're giving you steps to do that. So the self is trying to get somewhere. And what happens is that goal is always receding. For Hessert, you never get that. You never get to the thing that will make you feel good. In fact, the more you demand of yourself, the more sacrifices you make, the more demanding the ought becomes. For Freud, this is called the superego. The more you try to feed the superego, the better you try to be, just the more guilty you become. You feed it, and it just gets bigger and bigger. So Hessert's seen this structure as something that you cannot get over through self-will. You can't overcome it through what he calls the archetype of the hero. The hero is the one who gets to the place they ought to be through self-determination, through grit, through hard work. And this is, in a sense, a character that we can admire, someone who is able to go out there and get what they need and get what they want. So it's a heroic gesture. But Hessert says the hero will always fail. This doesn't work. And every time we try to achieve the ideals, we end up kind of disappointed to some extent, or briefly happy, and then the next day everything's bad again. That we can never get to that place of wholeness and completeness. Now, one of the things Hessert says is, although we exist within this framework, we don't experience the framework as oppressive. What we experience as oppressive is not getting what we want within the framework. So say within a given frame, you want to be rich. You don't experience the desire to be rich as oppressive. You experience not being rich as oppressive. Or if you want to travel the world and meet new people and be self-sufficient, again, you don't experience that desire as oppressive. You just experience it as oppressive when you're not able to do it. But Hessert is saying this very structure is what is ultimately oppressive. And it's this very structure that we need to be freed from. And he feels that the term Christ crucified is the theological term for breaking this circle of reality apart, where we no longer live between is and ought. We're no longer striving for something that will fix us, that will make us whole, that will make everything peaceful and harmonious. That actually that very desire is what causes the conflict in our lives in the first place. And so in one, I'm going to just, by the way, pick out certain things that he says, like little fragments. And one of the fragments in a chapter, he talks about coveting. We think again about coveting as you really want something that you don't have, and like you're dissatisfied and you're desiring it, and it's your neighbor's property. It's something that you don't have. That's coveting. But again, Hessert wants to say coveting is not some individual thing that you happen to do. It's again built into the very structure of reality, structure of the self. We covet when we want something that we don't have, that we feel incomplete, and we then postulate something that will fix that. This is, again, coveting. This is a universal problem that we all feel the burden of. But Christ crucified, he says, is this interesting thing, because in religious terms, it is meaningless, and it's the representation of the loss of power. Signs and wonders generally are signs of the coming kingdom. They show us that we're on the right track. They support us. They legitimize us. But this symbol of a crucified God makes no sense. It's kind of like a square triangle. In terms of what we think a Messiah or a God would do, we would not think that a Messiah would do this. So he's saying we have to return to this crazy symbol that is at the center of Christianity, a symbol of the death of God. Not a God who comes with a sword, but a God who dies on a cross. Not a God of power, but a God of weakness. And Paul really wants to kind of help us experience the scandal of that. It is a type of sign that is against signs. It's a type of wonder that is against wonders. Because usually, like the sign of Exodus, where Moses leads the people out of slavery, where the waters part, is like a sign of God is with the people. It's a sign that you're on the right tracks. It's a sign that you're going in the right direction. But this isn't like that. This is kind of a sign that everything is finished. It's like nihilism, this nihilistic moment where God, the highest being, dies. So it's kind of the ultimate punk. It's an absurdist moment. Punk is kind of this movement that isn't so much a new musical form when it arrived. It was more a challenge to what we thought about music, to how we conceptualize what music was. In the same way, Christ crucified confounds all of our notions of what a God or religion is about. It doesn't legitimize things. It kind of it doesn't have meaning. It's meaningless and it's powerless. And Hessert says that is what's so fascinating about this, that when you embrace the idea of Christ crucified, what you're really doing is you're embracing a type of nihilism, a type of loss of all meaning, loss of your support, a sense of kind of turning the lights out, losing the compass that's been directing you in your life. And this sounds terrifying. This sounds like total chaos. But Hessert wants to say this is a good thing. This is why I call this seminar, Be Optimistic, Expect Chaos. Because this chaos and this nihilism, Hessert thinks, is actually the key to a different form of life. And this is a key to understanding what is going on in the Gospels. So, for example, Hessert says that, well, he says, what we do is we interpret Christianity in relation to the circle of reality. We interpret Christianity in light of the is and the ought, and meaning and power. But Christianity breaks free from that. So often he uses terms in inverted commas. And when he's doing that, he's saying this is the religious notion of the term. This is the term as it's used within the circle of reality. And then when he drops the inverted commas, he's saying this is the term in its radicality. So to give you an example, because you'll come across this multiple times in the book, he'll say grace. Grace in inverted commas, which is the popular religious way that we use the term, means that you haven't got to your ideal. You've let yourself down. You've let somebody else down, but it's okay, right? And it can be okay for like one of three reasons. Okay, you didn't mean it. Okay, you did something bad, but it wasn't your intention. So we'll show you grace. Don't worry about it. Or, listen, you did something wrong and you knew you were doing something wrong, but don't worry about it. We're going to give you a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance. Or finally, grace can mean, listen, what you did was bad, but it wasn't that important. Don't worry about it, right? Just keep on going on with your life. Those are ways that we use this term grace. Each of them fits within the circle of reality. It's saying you fell short, it's okay, either because you didn't mean it, or because we're going to give you a second chance, or because it wasn't that important. But Hessert says, no, grace is not something that operates within this circle of reality. Grace is what ruptures the circle of reality. To experience grace is to experience that there's nothing you ought to do. There's nothing you need to do. It's not that you fell short and you can get there again. If you get back on the horse and try again, it's like, no, you don't have to do anything. You're fine the way you are, or you're not fine the way you are, and that's okay. You're accepted. Grace is this experience that you accept that you're accepted. And for Hessert, that means that you are broken free from this idea of an ought. You're broken free from this striving for something. And therefore, you're broken free from guilt and condemnation. And this is key because for Hessert, guilt and condemnation, you can't get rid of it in normal terms. You can't get rid of it within the circle of reality. All you can do is internalize it and hate yourself, or externalize it and hate someone else. Right? They're the reason why I can't get the ideal. They're the reason why society's not working. Or I'm the reason, right? So you either hate yourself or you hate another. You can't get rid of the guilt. You can just basically internalize it or throw it out onto a scapegoat, onto another. But for Hessert, grace is the way to be freed from it. When you experience grace, you experience the loss of the need to get to somewhere that will make everything fine. And therefore you lose the guilt for not getting there. You lose the coveting something that you can't have. And you learn to be.